Welcome to Movies That Matter, the podcast about recent films going beyond basic movie criticism to boldly explore a social issue affecting people's lives. I'm Nicole, and with me today is
Adam,
Garret,
Justin,
and Lexy.
Lexy. What movie are we overanalyzing this week?
We're talking about Beetlejuice Beetlejuice.
So, surprising his sequel 36 years later, Tim Burton brings us an updated version of the main character, which I will not say for the third time, played by Michael Keaton, and featuring a grown-up Lydia Dietz, played by Winona Ryder, along with her stepmother, played by Catherine O'Hara, and bringing Jenna Ortega and Adam's favorite, Justin Theroux, for the cast. All right, diving right in. Garret, what did you think?
it was a cute movie. I enjoyed the nostalgia piece of it, but a lot of it just didn't land for me like I was hoping it would when I saw it. It was cute. I enjoyed it as like kind of just, I would go out and see this with my friends type of movie, but didn't really think it was overwhelmingly amazing.
So I actually first, when I saw the trailer, thought, does Michael Keaton need money for a bankruptcy? but when I actually watched it, it exceeded my expectations, and I had a very fun time. It was really fun. Now, was it the most award-winning film ever? No, not that. But it set out to achieve, like Garrett said, it hit the nostalgia, scratched the nostalgia itch, and it was a lot of fun with the scenes. It reminded me somewhat of Four Rooms, where it almost felt like you had just different sequences kind of all put together as opposed to one overarching plot, if that makes sense. But I really enjoyed it.
what a great reference to Four Rooms, by the way. I'm going to throw that out there. I agree with Justin. I thought it was plenty of fun. I don't find the original to be like that sacred, so I didn't really care that they were just making another movie. It was really funny. I will say the beginning I thought was rough. It took me a little bit to get into the movie. I thought it was going to be really bad, and then it got funnier as it went along. And
Excellent cameo by Danny DeVito, though.
yeah, yeah, I thought it was good. I thought Michael Keaton was great, and I thought they didn't put him in the movie too much again, which was good. And you kind of have that. What?
He's surprisingly very little in the original, like less than you think when you go back and watch it.
Or something.
Yeah. All right, Lexi, what'd you think?
Yeah, I think I also liked it. I'm curious to hear what other people's history with the original movie is, because I honestly I will admit the first time I saw the original movie was maybe 2 weeks ago. So for whatever reason, it just didn't get me as a kid. And I'd obviously heard of it, but and I reheard about it again with the musical that's been out and things like that. And then I heard we were doing this. I was like, I probably should watch the original. I liked it. I think, it's not the best movie, as other people have said, in the world, but I had a good time watching it. I really liked the music. I thought the music was fun. I agree with Nicole that Michael Keaton is not in the original one as much as I would have thought. He's not overwhelming in this one, but he is in it more, which I thought was a good balance. And yeah, I think they could have done more with the villain, the woman who was like his ex-wife.
He's totally abandoned in that movie. That was such a drag.
That was my number one complaint about the movie. That plotline was stupid, and they should just not have had it because it didn't really add anything, and then it was poorly utilized.
I think Tim Burton just wanted to show off his girlfriend.
Yes. So true. All right, no, so that's a good point, Lexi. I will answer what I thought of the movie, and then I will talk about my connection to the original, and then we can talk about that as well. So I didn't like this, and for a couple of key reasons, which we'll dig into. I wouldn't say I hated it. Like overall, it was fine. It got some good laughs. There were definitely things I did like about it. It wasn't like a, oh, this is the worst, but I didn't think it was much of a worthy follow-up to the original, which I'm pretty sure I saw in theaters when it came out. I'm pretty sure I saw almost all of Tim Burton's early work when they came out, and had nothing but great affection for the original. And that movie, because I didn't see Pee-wee's Big Great Adventure, but even so, like, I mean, Beetlejuice just burst onto the scene, and it was totally unlike anything else. And it was so kind of cool and exciting to just be brought into what we now are all familiar with as the Tim Burton world, but was just so unconventional at the time.
What's the last Tim Burton movie before this one that you guys have all seen? I'm curious about that because I went to this, and so mine was Dark Shadows, which I feel like was like 15 years ago or something. Like
I think mine was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and I was like, "You are not forgiven," and I'm out.
That movie is horrible. But yeah, for someone who made such an impression right away, like he's the live long enough to become the villain territory almost, where it's like he is doing the same stuff, but the brand has kind of snowballed where it's like Hot Topic wouldn't be a thing without Tim Burton. Like all this like stuff around him where it's like he's still doing the same thing, but it's like kind of like normal. So it doesn't like have the same pop as it did. Well, I think he tried with this one, definitely.
So to answer your question, are you talking about in theaters or just less?
Yeah, like at all, like the most recent one of his movies, I guess, before this.
Okay, in theaters,
Dumbo, Big Eyes.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now, and yeah, literally for me, Dark Shadows was the last one that I watched in theaters. Because I couldn't remember if Alice in Wonderland came out before or after that one.
It was like 2 years before, I think. It's like, I'll make this like real movie after this or whatever.
Mine was Miss Pettigrene's Home for Peculiar Children in theaters.
When was that?
Peregrine's, 2016.
Actually, I thought about it. They put out The Nightmare Before Christmas in theaters again last year. I did see that.
Doesn't.
We all know he did not direct that movie.
So. Right. But he's just...
It's just Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas.
I can't remember if I saw Alice in Wonderland in theaters, and if I didn't see that one, it honestly might be, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory or Corpse Bride that I last saw in theaters from him. There's a theme I've noticed where I think even though I did watch creepy things probably growing up, there were like certain creepy things that I just kind of did not do, and I kind of missed them growing up.
That's fair.
My mom also doesn't like creepy things, so that didn't help.
Yeah. Well, so along with Tim Burton, Justin, I can't remember if it was you or Nick who said it, but like, so we got together and we watched the original in preparation for this. And the moment the music hit, somebody goes, "That classic Danny Elfman score." And I was like, no, I mean, that's fair too, because like you hear Danny Elfman's music, you know it's Danny Elfman, like right away. He has such a distinctive style. And that's so much of part of those Tim Burton movies, but just like what an iconic talent as well.
Yes, very big fan of Danny Elfman's music. I think maybe it was me that said that. Yeah, actually, really, I was in New Orleans a couple years ago, and apparently, I guess Danny Elfman put out like a new album, and this guy was telling me about it. And I was like, oh, I need to check this out, and it was actually pretty good. But yeah.
Speaking of nostalgia, I also felt a weird nostalgia feeling, even just the overhead shot in the beginning of like zooming in on the town. I was like, wow, like I feel like this used to be in a lot of movies, and I just don't see this a shot quite like this anymore. And then I'm glad that they kind of recreated it in this new one on the same town.
They rolled all the credits in the beginning too.
Yeah,
like it was all the 80s.
Yeah, that's a very thing. That's something you don't see that often anymore, where they would listen out all that to something. I appreciated that.
Yeah, I think that was I loved it for those reasons. I love the nostalgia that was in it. I loved the like little callbacks. If you'd seen the original Beetlejuice, Lexy, to answer your question, I think like Probably college. I went through like a horror phase with my friends, and like that's all we did was like creepy horror movies, like all the time. And that was the first time I saw Beetlejuice because I was never gonna be allowed to watch that as a child. But it just kind of resonated with me. And then, of course, there was the show, the cartoon show that everyone became obsessed with. And then I saw the musical, and I was like, oh my gosh, like it's evolved in its own right every time. And so I guess I was hoping that this would also evolve instead of just kind of staying stagnant with the original. Um, and I think actually Catherine O'Hara did a wonderful job of trying to push her character to be something completely flipped on the script. She was kind of the villainess, in the first one. But I feel like she went through this going in being like, "Oh, I'm going to like make fun of myself for every other part I've played." So like I was reading an article and like she intentionally like wanted something to make fun of herself as Moira Rose, and so like she saw when you're in the art studio, there's like crows all over her, and she's part of the art. And then when she's like screaming to capture grief, she does like the Home Alone face, and so like she like tried to really bring in some of her own like nostalgia to this movie to really give it a new light and be like, this woman is really not as mean and as uptight as we thought she was. She's kind of just like dumb and a little in love, which I thought was really sweet too. It was more about her being in love with her husband this time around than it was just like her being engaged to like his money, basically.
Speaking of the villain of the piece, do we all know that Jeffrey Jones was arrested as a convicted sex offender?
Yes.
That's why he's not in the movie, right?
Yes. I was like,
They handled it great, but the way they just had him being this headless
But like
corpse
he's
walking
still
around.
in the movie. Like they keep showing.
Nope. They are all AI rendered images of him.
It's a picture of him. It doesn't matter. You're still gonna like think of him. So it's like kind of a weird thing. I thought.
yeah, no, that's
To be fair, like I don't care about that, but I can see other people being like it's like he's kind of still in it.
Yeah, they
He didn't get any
definitely
money
keep the
for it.
character.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh my gosh, like he always played like, other than in that movie, actually, he's like the principal in Ferris Bueller. He always kind of played a bad guy. So random.
Yeah, I think Catherine O'Hara was definitely a highlight for me in the film. And I think it got me also thinking about kind of, yeah, when you have a sequel so far down the road of like how people are played and then what their perception is of them, and kind of the idealistic version you have maybe in the beginning, and then kind of how they become more human in the sequel. And I don't think it's an exact comparison, but in the fact that Lydia Deetz like this beloved character from the original movie, and kind of ends happy-go-lucky at the end, and then she's kind of a bad mom in or like a more complicated mom in this like sequel. And then I was thinking of like Aang from Avatar: The Last Airbender, and how there are, I know when he in Legend of Korra was kind of portrayed as a bad father, that everyone was like, how could you do this to Aang? Like, how could you make him like a bad father? And I was like wondering if there would be a similar reaction with Lydia Deetz, and if it's like a fair portrayal.
Yeah, I definitely found that making her some kind of neurotic mess as an adult was an interesting choice. Because you kind of get the sense that she has like the Maitlands to be these sort of stable parent figures in her life, in spite of her dad and her weird stepmother. So I could get why the teenage daughter mom conflict can be played out a million different ways. That didn't bother me, but I was like, why was she so screwed up as an adult?
She was kind of like raised by ghosts at the end of that first movie. That's like the implication, and it's
right.
Like, that's a weird thing. I probably, if it were to happen in real life. So it makes
I feel like I would love to have Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin alive or unalive.
I think that's kind of I agree with both Lexy and Nicole's point. Like, I didn't know why she had to be so neurotic, right? Like, oh, I'm addicted to pills. I can't do anything. The ghosts are consuming my life. Ah, help. But like, I built a life around the ghosts, so help. Like, I did think it was a little odd that it was like you expected her because of the first movie to kind of have a different parenting style to be like, oh, I was not raised by a very caring parent who was there all the time. I was kind of left on my own, and I was different. And so when her daughter is different than what she is, I expected to be like, oh, well, we love this. Everyone's different. But it almost, I don't know. Winona Ryder acted really well, I felt like, in this movie. But I just felt like the writing for her character was like not quite up to the standard I was expecting from the original. And again, I think that's where I wanted it to evolve. I wanted her to be like, "Oh, I'm this super cool like mom who like does these really wonderful things with ghosts, but my daughter just still doesn't believe me, but I'm gonna keep going because I love my daughter." And we kind of just got more of this like anxiety ball of like, I can't function without a man, and I hated that.
I also don't like the unspecified pill. Like, don't even have that in there. Like, it's just so like either commit or leave it out. It seemed kind of like cut and paste. Like every plot, like I love the humor and like just the energy of the movie. But the plot felt very like you said. It's like it was almost like an AI or a cut and paste thing wrote it, and it was like kind of stitched together. And that was definitely part of it for me. It was like that the acting saved it, but there was no real like story that was like not lazy. I guess it seemed like very like nobody thought about that. They were like putting energy elsewhere into the movie, and like that like seemed like an afterthought. Like the stuff where she's like fighting climate change at school, and it's like let's just throw that in there to give her a personality or like. And some of the, like I said, the people, like the actors were great and saved it for the most part. It's like you kind of notice it anyway.
But stories just end all of a sudden. Like there's no like the resolution is they're done. Like when the boy like steals, the daughter's soul, and all of a sudden he's about to get his freedom, and all of a sudden, nope, you're done.
Yeah.
Over, and you're like, wait, what?
Favorite line of the
was
movie.
that easy? Why did we do that in the first movie?
Yeah, I think the story felt a bit disjointed, and it was a lot of like, and then this happened, and then that, as opposed to it being a very logical like flow or like with the acts, so to speak. I will say though that I thought there were some very fun performances. Like everyone's highlighted Catherine O'Hara, Winona Ryder. William Dafoe had me like I love that.
Oh yeah,
playing was just absolutely hilarious to me.
He was so funny.
Justin Theroux too. He was great in that movie. He is so funny.
Yeah, so
I could have lived without William Dafoe. That was another one. I was like, I would have cut this was filler, and I didn't appreciate it. But I do
keep mentioning filler too because it's so short. Like it's not.
Yeah. Although him constantly being handed a cup of coffee, I thought was a funny running gag. But I did want to say about the Catherine O'Hara thing, like there was even like there's like a line of exposition that comes way too late in the movie where they're like, "Oh, you only started liking me once I got famous," and I was like, one, you didn't need that line of exposition, and two, it was terrible. I found their relationship, their adult relationship, wonderful and completely believable. That Lydia had grown out of her teen angst. Julia had settled into being her, as an adult and didn't feel like she had to be such a parental figure. Like I thought that they would have organically grown closer as adults to be completely viable. So yeah, so then they were like, then they had to give a reason for why they had grown closer, and it was a stupid reason. And I was like, that ruined it. Like, why did you write that line? It was terrible.
And they're still not like, they're not like in each other's arms. Like they're just more civil as like adults tend to be as you said, people get out of their teenage years. So I agree with that. I also liked Willem Dafoe. I thought his manner. I agree with Justin. I thought it was funny. But yeah, I think it just goes along with the theme of the performances are kind of saving it, and then the nostalgia pieces, but then the actual story arc is lacking.
Justice for Bob though in this whole movie, because at the end of the movie, Bob is still just around town doing whatever, hanging out. I'm like, what happened to Bob? Like, what happened to him hanging?
His facial expressions were funny during the movie.
The shrunken head guy?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dead.
Yeah, is that he reminds me
all
of
the variations of Bob. So they're all Bob, like the other ones that like got out into the society.
But they're just other people.
Yeah, they are.
Bob is just the one guy.
Oh, I thought they were all different
Yeah,
permeations of him.
No, it's like kind
Oh.
of like the minions. Like they're all different ones, and Bob was just a specific one who laid down his life in the line of duty. Which is something I like, that there were like these like edgier moments to the movie where it wasn't like, it was like I kept seeing things in it where I was like, wow, this is like kind of messed up that was just in there. Like, and I like that it didn't have those edges kind of sanded down. It's like, obviously you meet like the Dostoevsky kid and you're like, oh, something's gonna be up here. But like his parents like having tools in there, I'm like, damn, way to commit. I respect that.
That was a fun twist.
Yeah.
I kind of clocked that as soon as they didn't show their faces, how they were just talking to me. Just I'm like, oh, okay, this something's going on. He's like, well, my parents will know. So I'm like, oh, he's probably a ghost, and she can see.
I don't think they tried to hide that too much, though. No. It didn't seem like there were like anyone spraying anything there.
I mean, it was
which
also
I like, is obvious. Yeah.
It was a direct ripoff from American Horror Story, though.
One last bit with Bob. It reminded me of another Tim Burton film, the original Michael Keaton Batman, where Joker has Bob the Goon, and he's like, Joker ends up killing Bob towards the end of that one, even though he was his number one guy. So I felt like there was some parallels between how Beetlejuice was treating his Bob and how Joker treated Bob the Goon in Batman.
That's funny.
That's cute.
Yeah, so I will say, so here's a couple things that I liked that carried over from the original. So speaking of the evolution, actually one of the few things I thought that they did really well evolution wise, so I guess he's been using the same costume designer, Colleen Atwood. I thought she did a terrific job, and I thought that the clothes that particularly Lydia and Delia wear, like their sort of evolved style into adulthood, where Lydia still kind of has that goth look, but it's updated. I thought the costume design throughout the movie, both movies, was terrific, but I thought like she really elevated that in the way that the writers just didn't know how to do it.
Yeah, the aesthetic in this movie was really well done, and obviously like Tim Burton-y, and I didn't realize that he had been using the same costume designer for so long, but that tracks.
I also thought I also agree with the costumes, and I thought the effects kind of also had a similar essence to the original film, where like they're not the best, but they're like cool for like the time, or at least I guess maybe in the previous one they were cool for the time and so out there. And then this one also, like, they were definitely updated effects, but were still had like a similar aesthetic and craziness that the first one had as well.
Yeah, the way the Neither World looked in this one was so great, and the way that was, they were there, I feel like, a lot more in this one, and in a way that didn't like wear out the coolness of the first movies. Like, oh, it's like, get it, you die and you're at the DMV. Like, I thought they kept doing like really fun stuff with that environment. Beetlejuice's like little, like, his call center was hilarious. The Soul Train, all that stuff was great.
Right.
And like the weird sort of like fun house hallways that people are like, but that's just like, it's not like it's scary, like it was kind of like weird, but it's also like that's just like what a hallway is like in this place. Like it like seemed kind of like mundane at the same time. I love that.
Yeah, the Soul Train bit that just had me cracking up. Like, I was like, okay, this is a good thing that they introduced here.
Yeah, I mean, so seeing the original, like, we all know my stance on practical effects, and I actually was like looking through Tim Burton's resume, as it were, and I was like, yeah, where he jumped the shark, where he started using CGI in the early aughts. Like, he didn't make it out of the 90s, and he didn't make a particularly good movie since, and that's one of the reasons that I didn't like one of many of the reasons. So I was thrilled that they stuck with the practical effects for this one. And the makeup, I mean, like, the line between practical effect and just the makeup effects were just, it was fabulous. Like, it looked terrific, and it was so great to see somebody really taking their time with that rather than using AI or computer effects.
Well, I wonder if that's because the last, I feel like, practical movie he really did that was touted as having these effects was Planet of the Apes, which I really like. It's terrible, But
Okay.
But it's fun.
all the ape stuff in that is really cool, and all the sets are really cool. And that movie, it was a weird thing that like made money, but I can't think of like a soul who likes that movie. And it's like not even bad enough to warrant looking at for that reason either. It's just like such a nothing thing. I guess after that, I want to see what this computer thing's all about.
So yeah, so I, like it was just a delight to see all the makeup and the like them getting like sucked into this little like vacuumed up body. It was great.
Yeah.
One thing that I did enjoy also about the movie was the runtime. And I'm someone who doesn't mind long movies, but this felt like they kept it moving along at a brisk enough pace, I think, so that you didn't know it didn't feel like it was lagging, especially because the story was a bit lacking. So they just probably wanted like, all right, let's just keep this going.
Yeah, I kind of felt like we watched shorts of Beetlejuice's like chronicles instead of like a theme throughout it. Like everything had its own little, but that also I feel like kept a nice fun pace.
It's like 4 episodes of the cartoon stitched together.
And yeah, I mean, and I guess this is also like, the musical tried to really correct a lot of the wrongdoings of the first movie. It tried to address the sexism. It tried to address like the jokes about marrying children. It tried to address like some of the really problematic things. And so it makes fun of itself in the musical. The musical, it makes fun of like, oh my gosh, could you imagine marrying a child? No, it's just a contract by law that you will work me forever. Like child labor is better than, child like bride. But like, and so Beetlejuice, instead of all this like kind of sexist and gross jokes he makes in the first couple several times in the first movie, was it really addressed in the musical to kind of be like people make jokes at Beetlejuice and like sexually like assault him and like make jokes at him, and so like to kind of call out like, oh, how do you like it? How does this feel? And he's always like, stop it, I don't like it, stop it. So this movie I felt like just kind of went backwards again. We just were like, you know what? We're just going to take out, nothing's canon but the first movie, and then we're going to add a whole bunch of things that are canon too. So here we go. And so that's what I felt like there was not a lot of continuity based on like, because in the cartoon, Lydia and Beetlejuice actually develop a nice relationship and have to work with each other and help to like get people back to where they're supposed to go. That's like the whole premise, is they find a way to coexist together and really help people after life, after death, after life, whatever, in the netherworld. So it just kind of felt like Lydia would have been more of a helping profession, not a like TV evangelist.
It's like John Edwards, which no one wants to be John Edwards. Like that was terrible.
Yeah, so I agree with you, Garrett. Like this sort of sexist shtick was kind of, I was like, we didn't. I mean, I know it was part of the original character, but I wasn't sure why we needed to bring it back. And I guess so. I think, like, honestly, my biggest complaint of this movie is MacArthur Park. That song sucks. To have it, the big set piece be the song MacArthur Park was like such a total fail in comparison to the 2 great Harry Belafonte songs in the original. And I was like, this big musical number should have been as fun as the original. And this song is not hitting remotely at all. And I thought, what a waste. Like, who picked this terrible song to do this set piece? Like, it was so bizarre, and it just like didn't work at all the way that it did in the original.
Yeah, I agree. I wanted a big, huge number where we're like getting jump in the line, right? Like, and everybody's like being possessed and not sure what's happening to themselves and having this, giant like motions and like really like overacting it. And I kind of felt like, and this is what it reminds me of, when I saw Barbie and I'm Just Ken came on, and it's just this song where everybody just kind of paused in the background, moving in slow motion, and it's all about this ballad of this man, and I was like, what? This doesn't really land. And that's what I kind of felt like Beetlejuice was doing, was his own just kind of, I'm just Ken. I'm just Beetlejuice right here, doing my thing. Everybody can do whatever I say, because, the rules of continuity don't apply to my magic when it comes to these numbers. But yeah, I agree with you, Nicole. I did think the little children's choir doing
Dale.
Deo, you will see that forever, I'm sure, in memes forever.
So funny. One of my favorite parts.
We could not stop laughing. And that's what I wanted more of. Like nostalgia me, but also make it different. So like I get like, tingles, but also like, oh, we love this, but oh, okay, that's actually really cute how you like brought it forward. So I was with you. The number didn't land for me. I was expecting more from it, and I felt like his ex-wife, a whole plot line verges on that too. And it's like, what is this scene? Just everything comes together in one church house.
I did like the throwaway way that was introduced, where it's like the black and white short. I was like, if they had kept it like that the whole time, like kind of almost acknowledging that it was stapled on, I feel like it could have been better. Like I like that
Pun intended.
intro. Very much so. But then it was literally forgotten about, and then occasionally it's like, oh, like she's roaming around. Watch your soul. And then like, let's go back to this like other thing.
That sequence, Adam, was highly entertaining to me too, because they had like the subtitles as they were speaking in, I think, Italian.
Yeah.
And it reminded me, it seemed like a callback to like those old like 1930s Universal monster pictures. Like it just had like that vibe and aesthetic.
Yeah, it was like the beginning of Renfield, where they have like Nick Cage as Dracula. And like that's so like that movie like this movie would have benefited from being like a little bit more like that, where it's like this was like both simultaneously like too plot heavy and not enough attention paid to it. Whereas like if you just like chosen one of those strands and been super caffeinated the whole time, like that movie, which has its own problems, but it's like this could have, I think, been popped a little bit more in that way. It's like it did pop a lot, I thought, but it's like that held it back from being something like really like I thought special, as opposed to like this is like for what it is quite good. But this was like those way better, something like that.
Yeah, no, I think I really enjoyed sitting there. Like I would go see this for a fun movie. I was a little like, ooh, podcasty. I'm not sure this is like there's not a lot of social issue to talk about here, because they abandoned all the social issues. Like, my dad's saving the rainforest. Oh, he's dead.
That's a good lesson. There's no money in saving the world.